Hello and welcome to the lecture video covering break-even analysis in Excel. So if you go to Canvas and you can find this swimwear data testing 2.xlsx, remember it's going to be posted under modules, not files. This is the file that we'll be working with, and then you can see that we do have a solution file over here, although and this is what we're eventually going to get to, is to do a little break-even analysis similar to this. But the solution file uses a table, and we're going to do something a little bit better, okay, than using the table. Right? That's one way to do it, but I'm going to show you a different way to do it rather than setting up a table here in our in this lecture video. Okay. So the first thing is we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. So this should be there. If that's there, just go ahead and get rid of that. So we're going to manually calculate this. Okay. So the break-even X value, where that's saying the break-even X value, that's the break-even in terms of number of units. The break-even Y value is the break-even in terms of sales dollars. Okay, sales in units, sales dollars, and then we can have our break-even like that, the label that we'll use in our graph. Okay, so we're going to come over here and we're going to do a formula to calculate break-even. So remember, the way to calculate break-even is we take our fixed costs divided by our contribution margin per unit. Okay. So I'm not going to use range names in this video. Feel free. It would probably be a better way to do it. But just in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through and name everything up here in terms of range names. And so as you can see, we do have our assumptions about our sales in units, our selling price per unit, our variable cost of goods sold, our variable distribution, and then our fixed expenses right over here in terms of marketing, payroll, and then estimated overhead, which would be our fixed costs. So first thing is I'm going to come over here and do a formula, is I'm going to add up all my fixed costs. Okay. I get my 145, and then I'll come over here, and I just did it just to check it, and I'll divide it by another parentheses, and what I need to do is calculate my contribution margin per unit. Remember, that's going to be our sales minus our variable costs. Okay. Now, so that's your answer, 2009-47.15. You can't sell 0.15 units. So really break even in this situation is 29.48. So we need to put in a function here in Excel to round up. And you might have guessed it, the function is called round up. So I'll go open my parentheses, I'll come over here, and I'll go 0. I want to round up to 0 digits like that, so it gives a whole number, 29.48. Okay? Now there's a couple different ways to calculate your break-even X value, which is your sales dollars and units. Remember, what you could do is you could take your fixed cost divided by your contribution margin per unit. I'm sorry, your fixed cost divided by your CM ratio, and that will give you the sales dollars in terms of units. Remember, the CM ratio is your contribution margin divided by your sales. That's one way to do it. We're going to do it a slightly different way over here. We're going to do it a simpler way. We're just going to say the number of units that you sell right over here times the sales price per unit. That would give you the total sales dollars. So just do a quick formula. Say this times that. That's our break-even sales dollars right over there. Now, if you divide by the CM per unit, you're going to get a slightly different answer just due to rounding. But this is the way I'm going to attack it right over here. And then we'll come over here and we're going to say our break-even label. So I'll come over here and I'm going to go equals, and then I'm going to go BE, and I'm going to go BE for break-even, and then space, and I'll do my ampersand, and then remember it's under B24, right? And so then that way, if this changes, if I were to come over here and change this to 150 like this, watch the break-even change, okay? And then the label changes too. So I'll hit edit, undo, and I'm back. So now what I want to do is I want to focus on this area right over here. Okay? So I'm going to stretch that out. So I'm just going to go 0, I'll go 500, I'll go 1,000. Okay? So what I can do is I can highlight this, and then I can stretch it down to 8,000 like this. And then that way I don't have to type it all. So that's just, or you can type it in however you want to do it. So then we're going to set up a formula to calculate total sales. Remember, total sales would be just the units, like this, times the sales price. So I come over here and I'll say units times my sales price right over there. Now, before I copy this down, I need to hit F4 to make that an absolute cell reference. Otherwise, when you copy it down, it's not going to work right. And then that gives me my total sales, and I can stretch this out, and there we go. Okay. Now, my total fixed costs, I'll come over here, and I'll say my fixed costs, remember, will be equal to this plus this plus this. And then what I can do, remember, before I copy that down, I have to give that an absolute cell reference. Okay. And then I can calculate out my total costs. I can come over here, so my total costs is I'm going to say this, right? So I have to calculate out my total variable cost plus my total fixed cost. So what I'm doing right now in this formula is calculating out the total variable cost. So I'm going to say my variable cost per unit, right? Like this. That adds up my total variable cost per unit times the number of units, right? And I'll end the parentheses. I'm just a big fan of parentheses. I'm sure it probably worked mathematically if I didn't do the parentheses, although I would have to add these two or multiply each one times K7. I just did it this way. And then plus my fixed costs right there. Okay? Now, before I copy that down, I do have to put F4 like that. And then what I can do is copy this down. Okay? So now we can come over here and we can calculate our net operating income. So we can take our sales minus our total costs. Drag that over a little bit. And then copy that down. And you can see that we cross over. You can see break even was $29.48. So you can see, look at $2,500, still a little bit of a loss, but then $3,000, which is a little bit more than our break-even point of $29.48, we have a profit of $2,600. Break-even would be a profit of 0. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to do a cool graph like this. We want to do a cool graph. Okay. And we want to do one that's flexible, that changes based upon whether we change the sales price or not. Okay. So we're going to come over here and we're going to highlight all these columns, but not the net operating income column. Okay? And then we'll come over here and we'll go to Insert, and then we're going to go to Scatter, just like this, and we're going to select the third one, Scatter with Smooth Lines. And then it automatically puts it in. Okay? Now I can come over here and I can give this a chart title. I can call it Break-Even Analysis, like this, whatever you want to call it. You can change, the axes if you want to. I'll stretch this out a little bit. Okay. But I do want to add one more thing. I want to add in another data series. So you can see I have 3 data series: one for sales, one for fixed costs, and one for total cost fixed costs. Right over here, sales, and then I have my sales, and so here's my break-even point. But what I want to do is I want to add a data series for the break-even point, and then make it show up as a little square so that anybody who sees that, right, they can tell right away that's where the break-even point is. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of these data series, just like this, left click, and then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to Select Data. Okay. Then you can see here's all my data. Here's my sales data, my fixed cost data, so on and so forth. Okay. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say Add Series. It says Series Name, and I want it to be what we call our break-even label right there. Okay. The Series X value is going to be the units. Okay. And then my Series Y value always puts that there, and I need to just delete that. I'll put in my Series Y value like that. Okay. Then I'll hit OK. And then I'm like this, and what I can do is I can grab that little guy. You just click right there, left mouse click. You got it right there. And then what I can do is right click, and I can go Format Data Series. And then when you do that, you come over here, and then what I have is my Format Data Series. Okay. So then I'm going to click So once I've got that data series, I'm going to go click on, it starts off there, and I want it to go a little pale, a little orange pale right over there, and then a little bucket, and then I'm going to click on marker. Right? Then I'm going to go to marker options. I'm going to select built-in, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, and there we go. So now I can click off it like this, and there's my cool graph. So the cool thing is, if I come over here and I change this to 150, it automatically adjusts the graph. If I come over here and I change this to, 100,000. Okay, it automatically adjusts the graph. So you can see the break-even point changes. Okay, and I can change that to 150. Okay, and so you can see the break-even point moved up. All right, well, that concludes the lecture video on how to do break-even analysis in Excel. That's it. And you can see I do have the solution posted up here, and the data in the name of that file is swimmer data testing completed. But again, this one probably the way I showed you how to do it, I didn't use a table, and I think it's better not to use a table. But this one uses a table. But you can double check your figures, your income before taxes, like 199,400 right there for 7,000. And we can see, I can grab this and move it out of the way, 7,000. And it's a little bit different because I changed some of the data points right over there. Remember, I changed it from 129.95. So that's why that changed right over here. But you should have if you change it back to the source data, the source assumptions, you should get that 199,400. And when I was going through it, I did double check it, and it was right. Okay. So that concludes the lecture video on how to do break even in Excel. Thank you.